The NBA regular season is over, and the Utah Jazz are the 5th seed in the Western Conference. They'll play the Dallas Mavericks Saturday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, noon against in Central Time to kick off the NBA playoffs. And we're talking about that coming up on POSTCAST. David Locke along with Ron Boone here. Not a lot to talk about in regards to the Jazz blowout 111-80 win over the Portland Trailblazers. It was the goal of the Jazz to get to the playoffs healthy, Ron. And they're much healthier than they were at this time last year, with Donovan Mitchell being a question mark going into Game 1 against Memphis. Mike Conley ended up with a hamstring issue. They seem to have managed that very well. And the Jazz seem to be a healthier team than at any point that they were last year in the playoffs.
Yeah, and that is definitely a plus, because now we get a chance to see what this team was built around at the beginning of the year, being healthy. Donovan is one of those players that you must have on the floor if you're going to win. So a healthy Donovan Mitchell. I'm glad he didn't play tonight along with Bojan, just to rest and get ready for a very talented and probably a tough team for the Jazz to play, even though the matchup is probably just the Dallas Mavericks.
So the Jazz and the Mavericks have played 4 times this year. If you've not heard, the first tip will be at 1 o'clock Saturday. We have no idea at this point how relevant that seems, but honestly, that seems like a really relevant thing to this series right now, because in today's game, the Dallas Mavericks, Luca Doncic left the game with a calf strain. No idea how serious it is, but frankly, there's a pretty significant 36-hour window of time in which the Jazz and the Mavericks could have played, and they're at the earliest of all of those games with a 1 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Mountain Time game. I don't know whether it will matter. Maybe Luca will be fine, but Ron, that actually seems super significant as it just came out a moment ago.
Yeah, it's really significant, and you kind of question how serious it is. I know that, as you mentioned during the broadcast with Bojan and then other players and Kevin Durant, who's had those type of injuries, the amount of time that they've really missed. And I think one of the big issues here is Doncic is a very high usage player. And when he's on the floor, he has the ball in his hands all the time. He's trying to make things happen. It doesn't play an up-tempo basketball game. So that might be in his favor, the fact that he's not really running and putting strain on it. But again, that might be what hurts him there as well, because he's not.
You just pointed out one thing that should be an advantage to the Jazz. This is the slowest paced play of team. The Jazz weakness at times this year has been transition defense. This is not a team that runs a lot. The Jazz half-court defense will be the thing stressed by Dallas in the series.
Yeah, can't remember how I think the player would be Brunson, the one that really runs the floor when Doncic is off the floor. He's the one that's going to push the basketball. Doncic doesn't push it. So there's 2 different ways they can play. And with Doncic on the floor, then you can bet your bottom dollar that's going to be a half-court game.
Kevin Pelton joined us on the broadcast tonight. He pointed out that in the series against the Clippers, now the Clippers are very different defensively than the Jazz are, but in the became an issue. If he's not at full strength, if he had to take some time off this week, if he's these are Dallas runs as Luca runs, and Luca's the beast that the Jazz have to deal with.
And that's very, very important, is to make him work. And I know the coaching staff have said that many, many times, to make him work and make him run him off screens when he's on defense, and just make him work offensively, and to the point where it's a possibility he could tire out and make himself to the point where he's not very good out there on the floor. If that happens, then the Jazz could have some great success against him. I'd like to see them take advantage of his. I don't think he's that great of a defensive player. If they can run him off some screens and just, as you just mentioned, tire him out. But, with him not being a great defensive player, you could probably make some things happen there as well.
The other one on this one is that they're much better. Dorian Finney-Smith shooting 45% from 3 on the corner threes now. Reggie Bullock's a 40% corner 3 shooter. Jalen Brunson's a good. So they're a much better team than they've been before. The Jazz got them in one matchup when they were at full strength, right? First came back from the All-Star break. And then they beat the Jazz in the other matchup that's relevant, where the Jazz were playing on a back end of a back-to-back coming out of Oklahoma City, where the Jazz didn't really on a fairly lengthy road trip, if I remember correctly. Yes, I do remember that road trip was being lengthy. And so they got the Jazz in that one where the Jazz didn't close out the Thunder enough to get the rest the night before. But those two games are pretty relevant games, and Luca was massive in one, and the other one, Gobert switched on him, and he did not have a very good game. So that would lead you to believe that it is all Luca, all Luca, all Luca.
Yeah, he gives those guys open looks, and Bullock and Benny Smith. He gives them open looks, and I remember quite a bit where they were knocking down those corner threes or up above the break threes. And don't forget Dinwiddie, who plays with the ball in his hands there as well, and could have a very good night. So those three wing players, it's a big concern, but Luca is the one that you're really worried
put their
about.
head down and drive with the Jazz. Everyone knows that's what you do. We'll see if our guys actually mark up and defend.
Yeah.
From the Jazz, from a regular season standpoint, Ron, the Jazz now have the longest playoff streak in the Western Conference. They win the division. They are the only team in the NBA to go 6 straight years without, I think, losing 38 games. Or 35 games. They lose 33 this year. There's something to be said for that. I mean, I think you've got to take a minute and respect the incredible winning that we're getting to see and the great entertainment we get for 6-7 months every season before we head into the playoffs.
Very consistent. And many teams in the NBA would like to say something like that, because that's how you build a good franchise. That's how you build a very good basketball team. Tweak it every now and then with players that complement your system. But consistency with this franchise has been very, very good over the years.
So it'll be Saturday. It'll be 1 o'clock Eastern time, 11 o'clock Mountain time, a Saturday afternoon matinee. Ron and I will be on the call. Is it ESPN? Was that ESPN or an ABC? ESPN. So Bowler and Thurl and Holly will be with you as well on TV. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I didn't do that. That was a joke. We like them a lot. So that'll be that. Any thoughts as we wrap up the regular season, Ron, on what this year was for the Utah Jazz?
It was one of those up and down years. And I think not only for the Jazz, but for every franchise, I think, in the NBA. COVID has really changed things, and it's really the league is entirely different. Players are different. So many players that every team has had to use all season long because of COVID and injuries. It's just been, one of those years where it's been a battle of survival, just trying to, get to this point.
Two teams that don't have a great track record, right? The Jazz won a playoff series last year and then lost the second round. The Mavericks and Luca have not won a playoff series yet. Jason Kidd does not have a great playoff record yet as a head coach. So you are facing two teams that have to kind of figure this out, get used to it. It's not like playing the Warriors where Draymond was going to be the head you had to cut off, and I think he probably would have grown another one if you tried to cut it off. So it will be interesting, and we'll see what happens. The one that gets really interesting, frankly, if you want to kind of look ahead a little bit, is watch that Minnesota Clippers game on Tuesday night, because if the Minnesota wins and the Clippers go play Phoenix, who knows? The Clippers are the team that everybody wants to stay away from right now. With Kawhi Leonard lingering, Paul George back. Could be quite a 1-8 series as well. All right, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're fired up for it. Thanks for joining us throughout the regular season. And Locked On Jazz will be with you all week long. Have a good one.